ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. So we will continue on our journey of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 11, verse 20 onwards. Now, let us recall that in verses 15 to 19, Arjun recalled the very pleasant side of the Supreme. He saw there Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh. He saw all the divinities. He saw all the, positive aspects of life. And before that, in 4 verses, Sanjay had also described positive side of life which he saw in the Supreme. Now these verses from 20 to 31, this is in our sense, it's not negative, but in the worldly sense, it's the opposite of what has happened in the previous verses. And why it is so we will understand it slowly. So let's start with verse number 20. ये स्वर्ग और पृथ्वी के बीच का संपूर्ण आकाश तथा सब दिशाएं एक आप में ही परिपूर्ण हैं तथा आपके इस अलौकिक और भयंकर रूप को देखकर तीनों लोग अति व्यथा को प्राप्त हो रहे हैं. Now he says that the whole universe, which he doesn't see anything else but him, the Supreme, because that is the beginning, middle, and the side of the universe. But he cannot identify the beginning, the middle, and the end, because there's nothing like that. It's continuous expansion, infinite expansion, which he sees. And therefore, he is not able to identify the directions. He doesn't know what is the east, what is west, what is north, what is south, what is up, what is down. He cannot identify because he is like something which is absolutely infinite in front of his eyes, which he never saw. I gave you an example of a person from Mongolia who never saw the ocean, and when he saw the ocean for the first time, he was completely lost. Ocean is still finite. We can see the horizons. But when you see the Supreme, there are no horizons at all. It's absolutely infinite expansion. So he is totally, lost and also having a sort of fear. So then he says, Alokik and or Bhayankar. That is Alokik in the sense, something which is not normally seen. Alokik is also in the positive sense, that something which is so good, and also Bhayankar. Bhayankar is also there because he also see the negative side according to the worldly expression. So this is what he says, that तीनों लोग व्यथा को प्राप्त हो रहे हैं, that everything is, he sees that everybody is suffering because of what he saw there. Now, I'll explain that in a little while. Let's go to the verse number 21 first. वे ही देवताओं के समूह आप में प्रवेश करते हैं और कुछ भयभीत होकर हाथ जोड़े आपके नाम और गुणों का उच्चारण करते हैं तथा महर्षि और सिद्धों के समुदाय कल्याण हो ऐसा कहकर उत्तम उत्तम स्रोतों द्वारा आपकी स्तुति करते हैं. Now this is also a positive side again, verse number 21. That he says that devtaon ke samay, all the divinities, all the powers which we see in this universe, all of them, they are entering into you. Now, entering into you, that is what it appears to him. But they are actually located in him. There's nothing outside him. There's nowhere from they can enter. Because he is complete, he is Purna. Supreme is Purna. and therefore nothing which can enter from outside. So he's just feeling that they are entering, but it is not so. They are all located inside, and they are moving inside itself. But they are scared, because they are scared to see this, you know, what you call the very destructive form of the Supreme, and therefore they are standing there, with folded hands. And all the Maharshis, all the, great saints and rishis and Siddho means those people who have acquired certain special powers. All those people, they are talking about your, qualities, and they are praying to you that everything should go in the right direction. Kalyan ho. Everything should go for the good of the people. And they are praying for that. Then let's do verse number 22, and then we'll go into certain deeper sides. जो 11 रुद्र और 12 आदित्य तथा 8 वसु साध्यगण विश्वदेव अश्विनी कुमार तथा मरुतगण और पितरों के समुदाय तथा गंधर्व यक्ष राक्षस सिद्धों के समुदाय, वे सभी विस्मित होके आपको देखते हैं. Now, these words which have been used, 11 रुद्रों, 12 आदित्यों, 8 वसु, these are the words which were used in those times, 5,000 years back in time, to describe certain part of the creation, certain part of the Srishti was described by these words. They were also talking about Vishwadev, Ashwini Kumar. They were Ashwini Kumar brothers, Marudgan, 49 types of wind, Pitron ke samudaya, all those people who have passed away in the past and they are still existing there. Gandharv was a class of people who were engaged in music and dance. Yaksha is those people who have certain very special qualities, certain divine qualities. Rakshas, those people who have more negative, aspects, more of tamogun in their manifestation. Siddhon ke samudaya, those people who have attained certain, qualities or certain extraordinary qualities. All these people, they are absolutely lost. Vismit means completely lost. They don't know what is happening. This is what Arjun is looking at. Arjun is finding this kind of scene in front of his divine eyes which he has. Now, before we go into the further verses, let's clarify 2 or 3 things. One is that when you see this divine image of the Almighty, the whole Srishti, the whole universe is in front of you. So you do not know where to begin and where to end, because there is no beginning and no end there. There is no past, there is no present, and there is no future. Everything exists simultaneously. So even the future events which are going to happen, you can see with the divine eyes happening, and you can see with the divine eyes today. Like just now we were talking about weather forecast. Let's understand this. How do we see the future? There's a road in front of my house. I go on the top of the building. You are standing on the roadside. You see the vehicles coming. You only can see 4 or 5 vehicles which are right on the street, while I'm sitting on the roof of the house, and I can see 20 other vehicles who are coming in that direction, but they are little away. So my sight is longer than your sight. I can see the future, though it is, for me it is present, but for you it is future, because you are standing in the street. You can only see 4 cars. I can see 20 cars, and I can tell you that, okay, another 16 cars will follow. Then you will say, oh, you are predicting, you are seeing the future. No, it is not so. I am only seeing the present, but my location is higher, and therefore I can see that happening, and that will happen on the street a little while later. If we go further up, like we're talking about the weather forecast, we put up a satellite in the space. Now the satellite can collect data which are 10, 20,000 kilometers away from today, from me. They can record the temperature, they can record the winds direction, they can record how much, you know, clouds are forming, what is the direction of wind, and based on all those data, they can tell you that yes, after 3 days there would be heavy, rain in this area, there would be heavy snowfall here, there would be strong winds there. So they are able to predict the weather after 4 days, 5 days, 6 days, because what the satellite is seeing today right away is present for the satellite. But for us, it is the future, because this thing will happen after 10 days, 5 days in the place where we live. So this is nothing but the present state which can be perceived by the people of higher consciousness, and then it becomes like a prediction. So here, Lord Krishna is showing his Vishwaroop, in which you can see the past, you can see the present, you can see the future in the sense we understand it today. But for the Supreme, everything is present. There is no past, there is no present, there is no future. Everything is there, and that's it. So this is the difference which we will see when Arjun described, certain things in the coming verses. The second thing we have to understand is that the dualities are perceived by us as positive and negative, but they are not actually positive and negative in the true sense. For example, a person is born, he is bound to die. Now, we celebrate the birth, but we mourn the death. That is our perception. But without death, there cannot be any birth. The death is inevitable part of birth, and therefore they go together. Similarly, for example, sun rises. With the sun, we celebrate, we get up, and we see the beautiful sunrise, we feel happy, the whole world comes into existence, and then slowly the sun sets in the evening, and you go to sleep, the world comes to an end. Now the sunset and sunrise, they appear to be contradictory, they appear to be opposites, but it is not so. Without sunset, there cannot be sunrise. Without sunrise, there cannot be sunset. So, in the true sense, in the sense of eternity, in the sense of the Almighty, they are not the opposite. They are the same thing happening. These are the realities which are happening. So, the opposites which we perceive because of our mental frame in the world we live in. But in the real world, where these things exist, there are no opposites. They are all realities of existence. Let's take another example. Now, somebody constructs a new house in, say, 200 square yard. He's very happy. His earlier house was 50 square yard. Now he feels very happy that, I have a better house. So he feels happy. He left the other. Next day or next year, his neighbor constructs a house in 500 square yards, and then he feels all of a sudden unhappy. Oh, my neighbor has got 500 square yard house, big palace. So this is comparative study. That also gives us happiness and unhappiness. These are both realities. The house of 50 yards, 200 yards, and 500 yards. They are all realities. They are not something opposites, but we feel happy and unhappy because of our perception of the things. So there is no happiness, unhappiness attached with the house. It is attached with our mind, with our perception. So these realities which appear to be opposites to us, they appear because of our mental framework, because of mental perception, because of our mental psychology, because of how we look at the world. That is why it happens. So There are no opposites in the reality. So when the next verses will come, he will describe the very, frightening form of the Supreme. That frightening appears to us as frightening, but in reality, that is the real form where, according to us, the good and the bad exist together. The good and bad is defined by us, but in the real sense, they are neither good nor bad. That is the reality as it exists. Then it is the mind's frame which all the time keeps creating these differences. So once we are able to overcome our mind and its thinking process, then these differences are completely dissolved. And I think this is one of the purpose of the Supreme of Lord Krishna, to demonstrate his universal form, so that it becomes very clear that the so-called good and bad, they coexist in the same place. The so-called present, past, and future, they coexist in the same place. There is no present, no past, no future. They are all existing, in one go. Similarly, there is no, good or bad. There is no pleasant and unpleasant. They are all existing simultaneously. So this is a big lesson which this particular chapter tells us in the real form. It tells us in the real world, that you can perceive and you can see it. There's another point which we have to understand here. Look at Lord Shiva's form. Now, Lord Shiva is a supreme, which indicates death, destruction, Lord of destruction, Lord of death. But what is his symbol? Lord Shiva's symbol is actually the symbol of regeneration. The phallic symbol of Lord Shiva actually shows regeneration. So these two contradictions have been shown together there in Lord Shiva. On the one hand, he has been depicted as the Lord of the death. On the other side, he has been depicted as the Lord of the regeneration. So there's no contradiction. That is what our ancestors wanted to tell us, that don't perceive these contradictions in the opposite way. They coexist simultaneously, and in the real world, they are not contradictions. So these are certain, lessons which we have to learn from this chapter, where these things are coexisting, they are existing simultaneously, they are existing together. Then the next point, which is also important, that the whole universe is existing together there. Now there's nothing beyond that universe, so therefore neither coming nor going nor entering, nothing is happening. It's all existing there. Every movement is inside that corpus of the Supreme, inside the body of the Supreme. There's nothing beyond that. It is exactly like, when we have consciousness. In that consciousness, we see this universe. The universe is created and destroyed and recreated within our consciousness every single day. We don't feel it, but it happens every day. When we see now in the morning, we get up, the world is created. We perceive the world, it appears the world has been created. You feel it existed. It is not true. It is existing because our consciousness has given us the capability to see it, to feel it, to perceive it. The same consciousness in the night, when you go to the dream world, destroys this world and creates another world, which we see, in which we live actually. So this world is destroyed, a new world is created there. And then we go into the deep sleep, where this world, the world where we live in the waking state, and the world where we live in the dream state, both are destroyed, and we are living without any world. So all these things are happening simply because of the function of the consciousness inside us. So the world is existing because of the consciousness, not because of anything else. And that is the reason This world is also called Maya, because when the consciousness leaves the body, there's no world anymore. There's nothing around us. Nothing exists. So these points, these 3 4 points, Lord Krishna wanted to explain in the sensible form by demonstrating his universal form to Arjuna. So we must understand here that there is no past, no present, no future. Everything exists together in the universe. That is one point. There's no negative, there's no positive. All the qualities, Purn, because it has Purn Mada, Purn Midam means everything existing, coexisting together. A cruelty and you know uh, a form of compassion, they both exist together everywhere. And that is, these are different qualities of the supreme. Certain qualities are manifested in certain human beings more, certain qualities are manifested in some others more. That's a different thing, but they all exist simultaneously. And the third point is that there is nothing beyond the Supreme's form, because the entire creation is in the Supreme. It resolves into the Supreme, it revolves into the Supreme, and it reappears into the Supreme. Like if our body is examined by somebody else, if we can devise a certain instrument, a divine eye, through which somebody else can see our body, the person will see millions of life forms in our body itself. There are, you ask a doctor, he will tell you there are millions, perhaps trillions of lives living inside our body. Each cell is a separate life. Even in the brain alone, there are trillions of lives. So all those lives are existing together in the same body, though we feel this only one body, but it is not so. There are millions and trillions of lives inside us. Similarly, in the universe, that is a larger body, the body of the Supreme, in which billions and trillions and quintillions of lives exist simultaneously, and they are, passing through one stage to another in the same body, and they're appearing, disappearing. The sun is rising, sun is setting, the moon is, having its phases inside. The people are, taking birth and they are dying. All this is happening in the corpus of the Supreme alone. So these points are extremely important to understand when we talk about the supreme form of the Almighty. So now let's go to verse number 23. हे महाभाव, आपके बहुत मुख और नेत्रों वाले, बहुत हाथ, जंघा और पैरों वाले, बहुत उदरों वाले और बहुत सी दाढ़ों वाले, अत्यंत विकराल महान रूप को देख के, अत्यंत विकराल महान रूप को देख के सब लोग व्याकुल हो रहे हैं, और मैं भी व्याकुल हो रहा हूं. Now he has started seeing that there are so many, faces of the Supreme. Mukh, कितने सारे मुख, कितने सारे नेत्र, so many eyes, so many hands, so many thighs, so many legs, so many stomachs. So he is seeing the whole universe in one single place. He doesn't even know how to count them, because the whole universe is existing there. And therefore he feels it looks very frightening, Vikral. It looks very frightening. At the same time, he says Mahan, Vikral and Mahan. On the same time, it is divine, but also very frightening. This is what he is looking at, because the whole universe is looking in one single place, and he is feeling absolutely frightened, and he feels that everybody else is also feeling frightened. Then verse number 24. क्योंकि हे विष्णु, आकाश को स्पर्श करने वाले, देदीप्यमान, अनेक वर्णों से युक्त और फैलाए हुए मुख और प्रकाशमान विशाल नेत्रों से युक्त, आपको देखकर भयभीत अंतःकरण वाला मैं धीरज और शांति को प्राप्त नहीं होता. It is very natural when you look at such a phenomenal, image, phenomenal existence in one single place, obviously you will be completely overtaken. And you cannot be quiet, you cannot be at peace. And here, one point we also must understand that so far Arjun is not able to become one with the Supreme. He is still looking at the Supreme as outsider. He is known, it is not yoga, it is not the union, it is I and you. Despite the Divya Netra, it is not his mind and his construct is not in union with the Supreme. That is the difference. And that is why Gita will continue. If he had been in union with the Supreme, he would have become one with him. He would have become absolutely quiet and peaceful. He would have realized that everything is coexisting in one single place. But that difference of I and him continues. And that is why he is feeling frightened. Otherwise, there's no reason for him to feel frightened if he had become one with the Supreme. So this is the difference. He is not yet liberated. He is not attained the moksha yet. He is still in the normal human form where we exist. We have the difference of you and me. That difference is still there. So he says, आकाश को स्पर्श करने वाले दिव्यमान, मतलब this is all the lights all around, all the colors all around. There are so many, what you call thousands and thousands of very bright lights, prakashman. All these things, he is not able to describe them with perfection because nobody can do that. Once you see that huge corpus of whole universe in one single place, nobody can do that. So he's just putting certain words here and there, whatever he is able to see at a particular moment with his divine eyes. And naturally he cannot be very peaceful. अंतःकरण में मैं धीरज और शांति को नहीं प्राप्त करता, because he cannot be looking at such a frightening image of the Supreme in one single place. Then next 25, दाढ़ों के कारण विकराल और प्रलय काल की अग्नि के समान प्रज्वलित आपके मुखों को देखकर मैं दिशाओं को नहीं जानता और सुख भी नहीं पाता हूं, इसलिए हे देवेश, हे जगन निवास, आप प्रसन्न हो. So now his eyes are concentrating more on the so-called destructive side of the Supreme, which is responsible for death, which is responsible for the what we understand in the world, the negative aspects of life. And that is why he is talking about Vikral, he is talking about Pralakari, he is talking about fire which is destroying things. He is talking about the mouth which is, destroying the living beings. So he is using certain adjectives here, which are in the sense of our world are negative, but they are not really negative, but because they are the part of the total existence where negative and positive, they coexist, and there's no difference of negative and positive in that reality. But in our reality, in our world, there is a difference there, and we make the difference because of the duality of our mind. So this is what he's saying, that I cannot be happy. So, oh Lord, oh Supreme, make me happy and don't show me all these forms. Now he's saying, earlier he was saying I want to see, and now he doesn't want to see because he's so frightened. Now verse number 26 and 27. वे सभी धृतराष्ट्र के पुत्र राजाओं को समुदाय सहित आप में प्रवेश कर रहे हैं. राजाओं के समुदाय सहित आप में प्रवेश कर रहे हैं मीन्स they are going in the path of death. They are entering into the mouth of death. भीष्म पितामह, द्रोणाचार्य और कर्ण और हमारे पक्ष के प्रधान योद्धा भी सब आपके भयानक मुखों में वेग से दौड़ रहे हैं, as if they are going towards their own destruction, own death, and they are entering your mouth. Now he appears, for him it appears they are entering, but it is all happening in the same corpus, same body, and the movement is happening inside the corpus of the Almighty, because there is nothing beyond that. That is the pool. There's nothing exists outside, and therefore no question of entering. It is just appearing that they are entering. It is also happening because of the language and the thinking of our mind. But all this is happening inside. So here there is one important point which we have to understand, that this is showing the future, what is going to happen after the war or during the war. That will happen tomorrow, day after, in the coming 18 days. But he can see that happening right away. It is because the Lord is showing him that form which is 10 days, 20 days away. Like the satellite is able to see the wind and the precipitation and the heat and all that 10, 20 days in advance and tell you the weather. Similarly here, with the divine eyes, he is able to see that part of the Supreme which will happen in the future. It is not happening right now, but in our language of the world, it will happen later on. But in the language of the Supreme, there is no future, it is happening right now. So that is the difference. And here he's saying they're all entering into your mouth because you are appearing like a god of death. Now, god of death is something unusual, something fearful, something scary for us, but it is not so. And that is, in my view, is the real purpose of Lord Krishna showing this great form in which everything is coexisting, whether it is frightening, whether it is peaceful, whether it is good, whether it is bad, whether it is past, whether it is present. It shows that everything exists without any difference. And if we become one with him, then we will also feel that, and then we will be absolutely quiet. We will have no future thinking. We will have no thinking of the past. We will have no sense of directions. We will have no pleasure and no pain. It will be all what we call Anand. That is why the word Anand does not have a opposite. The pleasure and pain have the opposites, but Anand has no opposite, because once you reach that state of total quietness, total settled position, then that is the state where you consider everything as one single entity. So this is what these verses are telling us. Then verse number 28, जैसे नदियों के बहुत से जल के प्रवाह स्वाभाविक ही समुद्र के तरफ दौड़ते रहते हैं, अर्थात समुद्र में प्रवेश करते हैं, वैसे ही ये नरलोक के वीर भी आपके प्रज्वलित मुखों में प्रवेश कर रहे हैं. So, like the rivers constantly move towards the ocean to destroy their own existence. They destroy their own existence by entering the ocean. Similarly, all of us, all the people who exist in the world, they are entering into the mouth of the Supreme to destroy their own existence. This is the image he's seeing, because he is seeing the future. Maybe he's seeing the future which will happen 20 years, 30 years, 50 years hence. And that future is visible to him in the present because of the divine eyes. And therefore he can tell you that they are entering into the mouth of the death. As the rivers enter to destroy themselves, they enter the ocean, they destroy themselves. Similarly, these human beings, they are running towards your mouth to destroy themselves. This is another word which they are used in the next verse. is very fascinating. जैसे पतंग मोहवश नष्ट होने के लिए प्रज्वलित अग्नि में अति वेग से दौड़ते हुए प्रवेश करते हैं, वैसे ही ये सब लोग अपने नाश के लिए आपके मुखों में अति वेग से दौड़ रहे हैं. Patang, you must have seen patang in villages. I've seen that patang. You know that the patang see the fire, burning fire. Rather than going away from the fire, it enters the fire and enters with full force and destroys. He's destroyed, he's killed the insect, the patanga. Now, exactly the same way he's saying, all these people are coming into your mouth because he see the pravah. He also sees that how people are born from him, and then how people are, entering the death into him. All the birth and death and the all in the middle is happening in the same body of the Supreme. So this is how, that is the reason we do not call the Almighty as the creator. We call him Srashta. Srashta means out of his own body, he creates the Srashti. The Srashti is not something like a carpenter creating a door, or a Kumar is creating a pot. It's not like that. It is not separate from him. The two things are together, and therefore it's more like a dancer and the dance, like Natraj. The dancer and the dance, they go together. The dance cannot be separated from the dancer. But you can separate the pot from the potter. The potter and pots can be two different entities. Here, Srashta and Srashti means the Srashti appears in the Srashta. It's like the dance. That is why Natraj is called the expression of the universe, because the Natraj shows the dance in which we see this universe. This universe is dancing in the Supreme. All these dances are happening inside him. Without him, there's no dance. It is only he who is can be seen through the dance. So this is how it is. It's like the waves in the ocean, which we see the waves. The ocean has to be there. Without ocean, there cannot be any waves. Similarly, without the dancer, there cannot be any dance. So it is more like the Shiva in the dancing form, Natraj, rather than a pot and the potter. That is the form which, that is why we call him Srashta and Srashti. While in Western philosophy, they call him creator. It means the world is different and he is sitting separately, and then he creates the world. But in that theory, in that philosophical explanation, the question will arise: who created the creator? He created the Srishti, okay, but who created the creator? And then this question will continue to go backward infinitely, and there's no answer to that. And that is why the answer in our Shastras is very logical. It's absolutely perfect answer that everything is inside the Supreme. The Srishti is part of him. He is Srashta, but he is not separate from the Srishti. He is appearing in the Srishti itself. Without him, there cannot be any Srishti. Like without the dancer, there cannot be any dance. So exactly the same way. There's also an example which is given in our Upanishads very often. जैसे मकड़ी अपने अंदर से ही मटेरियल निकाल के अपना जाला बनाती है और उस जाले को अपने अंदर वापस निकल लेती है, उसी तरह से परमात्मा अपने आप को ही सृष्टि के रूप में व्यक्त करता है और उस सृष्टि को अपने आप में वापस समा लेता है. सो दिस इज व्हाट इज एक्सप्लेन्ड इन दिस फॉर्म हियर. Now verse number 30 and 31. आप उन संपूर्ण लोगों को प्रज्वलित मुखों द्वारा ग्रास करते हुए अपनी ओर बार बार चाट रहे हैं. हे विष्णु, आपका उग्र प्रकाश संपूर्ण जगत को तेज के द्वारा परिपूर्ण करते तपा रहा है। नेक्स्ट वर्स, मुझे बताइए कि आप उग्र रूप वाले कौन हैं। हे देवों के में श्रेष्ठ, आपको नमस्कार हो, आप प्रसन्न हो जाइए। आदि पुरुष, आपको मैं विशेष रूप से जानना चाहता हूं, क्योंकि मैं आपकी प्रवृत्ति को नहीं जानता। Now, in the first verse, that is 30th, he's saying that, all these people are becoming like a, jo, it's a morsel of food in our mouth. Similarly, all these humans are morsel of food in your mouth. Now, if you look at the image of, what we call Kali, this is exactly that image. The Kali also exists in the Supreme. That image is also there. That people are destroyed and the destruction is happening in the mouth of the Supreme. Similarly, as the Kali, you see the tongue coming out with blood, and you see those skulls all around. All that is not anything else but one small form of the Supreme. There are many, many facets of the Supreme. This one single facet of the Supreme is giving birth to everybody. The second is to maintain all of them, and the third is uh, to bring death to each one of them. So that is why the Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, these are the three major energies of the Supreme which have been talked about. Kali is one of those roops. Natraj is shown because the universe and the Supreme are not separate. They are one and the same. One small portion of the Supreme appears as universe. Srashta and Srishti are the same. So all these, various images of the Supreme which we see in our ancient literature, whether it is Ardhanarishwar, where we see Shiva as male and female both, when we see Shiva with phallic symbol, when we see Kali with all those, skulls and blood, all these are nothing but expression of the same supreme force in a limited way. One particular aspect of the supreme has been shown into those images. So this is what we have to understand. We don't have to segregate them. There's no segregation possible. The good and bad, and pleasant and unpleasant, the past, present and future, these are all the construct of our mind. These are not the depiction of the reality. And this is what I understand why Lord Krishna agreed to show his universal form to Arjun, so that he can comprehend the totality of the existence in one single go, rather than seeing the fragments here and there. And once we reach that state, we are able to see this totality in one single go, then I think all our dualities will be dissolved. All the differences will be completely wiped out, and we will become one with the Supreme, and we will attain eternal peace, or Anand as we call it. So this is my interpretation of these verses so far. Of course, there are different views, there are different perceptions. Many scholars have talked about very different interpretation of these verses, but I see these are symbolic expression of the Supreme, which he wanted to show in one go, to tell Arjuna that everything coexists. So don't distinguish between those who are on the opposite side on the war of Kurukshetra. The Bhishma and Drona are also in the same row, and they will also, face the death as everybody else will face in this universe. So don't be scared of that, and you do your duty, because this Srishti Chakra, this whole cycle of the universe is not under your control, it will continue in its own, motion, and you continue to play your small assigned role in that whole cycle. And that is what you should do. That is what Lord Krishna is telling Arjuna. Don't worry about this cycle, this will take its own course. And that is why he showed him the future which he saw with his divine eyes. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer some of them. Thank you.